Hello everybody and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. It is a pretty big podcast this week. We got some really good movie news items to talk about, and we got some movies to talk about that are coming out this week. You may already know one, but yeah, we're gonna dive right into the movie news here today. So I do want to mention though that if you're watching this a little earlier than you usually do, depending on what time you're watching this, but if you pay attention to the upload time, the podcast is going up a little earlier than usual because I'm recording it a little earlier than I usually do for the reason that I have some stuff going on this weekend that I can't get out of. So besides going to go watch Rogue One, but I do have some other stuff going on, so I'm recording this a little earlier than I usually do and putting it out earlier than I usually do for that reason. I do want to start trying to put the podcast up earlier than before. I was on a good track record until last week, but that's another story altogether. But let's jump right into the movie news. Of course, we always talk about the news items that came out last week after the podcast went up. Justice League Part 2 has been delayed to accommodate for Ben Affleck's standalone film, which we'll talk about in just a second. And this will give time for Zack Snyder to go and direct another film. So Zack Snyder is currently working on Justice League in post-production for its release next year in November. But the idea was that they would start working on the sequel almost right away. That is no longer the case, as the Hollywood Reporter, like I just mentioned, says that Justice League Part 2 has been delayed for the standalone Batman film with Ben Affleck to presumably take its spot. This means we'll see the Batman film a lot sooner than expected, and this also gives Snyder time to work on his long-in-development war thriller, The Last Photograph. So as for Batman, the film will presumably take its place. That was the original idea anyway, that it would take its place on June 14th. That is not really the case because, we'll talk about that in a second. But now they're giving him that. Now they want to push forward the Batman film as much as possible, considering that Ben Affleck, you sign Ben Affleck for a Batman film, you're not going to want him just to be in these team-up films. You want him to have his own movie, and you want it to have it as soon as possible, considering that Batman was one of the other highlights in Batman v Superman, the first one, of course, being Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. So when it comes to Snyder, he'll potentially go and work on The Last Photograph, which was a film that he's been working on for a while, and it centers on a war correspondent in Afghanistan who was the only one to survive an attack on a group of Americans, and when a special ops soldier in search for a family member shows up, the two team up with a correspondent hoping to score the story of a lifetime. So the project's been in the works since very early 2000s, and at one point Christian Bale and Sean Penn were attached to the film. Of course, nothing ever happened, and now the plan is to hopefully start filming next year, now that Snyder actually has time to film. So we'll see how that all unfolds in a minute, and again, we'll talk about Batman just in a brief second after we talk about the last news item that came out after the podcast went up last week, which was Tim Miller finally speaks out about leaving Deadpool 2. Now, after the success of Deadpool, I can't talk now, was a huge surprise to many fans that Tim Miller ended up leaving the film, or the sequel anyway, over creative differences with star and producer Ryan Reynolds, and over the studio and how the film should be handled. And it left a lot of fans, confused and maybe a bit unsure about the sequel, what was going on behind the scenes. Was there a lot more going on? But, stuff's come out. Ryan Reynolds talked a little bit about it, and I believe that we mentioned that last week or the week before. I can't remember now. Everything kind of blurs together now. But he did come out, and he told the fans, there were some arguments during the editing process, and that everyone was on good terms. And it seems to be the case now, because Miller spoke up, finally, about leaving the project, and he assured fans that he wanted to make the same kind of movie that the first film was. Now that goes to, there was a report that said that Miller was supposedly looking to making the film a little bit bigger, with a bigger budget, and everyone that kind of knew Miller in the industry was like, that doesn't seem right, but they went with it anyway. And they released the news item anyway. But he assured fans with this comment saying that he wanted to make the film just like the first. Here's what he said. I just want to say one thing to the geek audience out there because it's important to me what the geeks and nerds of the world think because they are my brother and sisters. I didn't want to make some stylized movie that was 3 times the budget. If you read the internet, who cares really? But for those of you who do, I wanted to make the same kind of movie that we made before because I think that's the right movie to make for the character. So don't believe what you read on the internet. Which is true for a lot of cases, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. He then cleared up another popular rumor, that he wanted Kyle Chandler to play the popular X-Men character Cable that would appear in the sequel. He said Kyle Chandler was not going to play Cable. All this stuff that I read kind of kills me. He then went on to talk about the production, saying the film wasn't as tough as Reynolds had previously commented, saying, even when some people go, the movie was really hard to make, the movie was a joy to make. I think you see it on screen. We all had such a good time. We had a few arguments in post, but nothing more than usual. The crew was so great. Everyone was going to come back, and we were going to have such a good time. And the idea that it was a difficult movie, it wasn't. It was a joy, and it was the best experience of my life. And he finally gave support to the new director, David Leitch, who of course directed the first John Wick movie, saying, I love all the actors. I wish them nothing but good luck. I hope it's great. I hope that's a great movie because I love the character and I think it's great and I love all the actors and I want to see them successful again. I haven't met David, but we have a great guy, but he's a great guy from everything I've heard. I want nothing but the best for the character and for Fox too. They deserve to make more money. They need to make more money. They were great. They were terrific. So, Miller, pretty much cleared some of the air, and maybe people will take this for face value, or maybe not. Who knows? He is still working with the studio after he left Deadpool. They gave him another project to work on, so he's going to go off and do that. And even when the reports came out saying that Miller left on good terms. And I'm kind of glad that Miller finally said something. I mean, eventually he was going to have to say something because people would probably pressure him to say something. So I really liked that he came out, and it was a very classy way of kind of letting people in, putting people into the loop and everything. So I'm glad that he said all this now instead of right before production starts, because then everything would be like, oh, did you hear what Tim Miller said? All this and that. So I'm glad he finally said something, and everything kind of seemed. And Tim Miller doesn't seem like the kind of guy. It's like he's gonna sugarcoat stuff. He seems like a kind of guy that's really, true blue. He's going to tell you what he feels a lot of the time. So nothing but respect for Tim Miller for coming out and giving it classy a little bit. So there's that. All right, so that was all the news items that came out last week after the podcast went up. Let's talk about the news items that came out this week, at least the time that I'm recording this. So let's talk about the first news item that came out this week, which is the Batman film. Now, previously mentioned, it literally a few minutes ago, or more than a few minutes ago anyway, that Justice League 2 got delayed, and presumably that the Batman would take its spot in 2019. However, it now looks like the Batman will come out a little earlier than we all previously thought, in 2018. So it looks like they're moving a little bit more quicker than presumably thought. This all started with Greg Silverman, who was the outgoing president of creative development and worldwide production at Warner Brothers. He kind of gave this interview right before he left and said that the Batman movie would come out in 2018, and it seems like that may be the case. So it's not necessarily confirmed just yet, but he was there, and even though he's no longer in the position, he's still in that, he was still in that circle of people like, we're going to release this movie here and here and here. And he gave updates to all these other projects like Ready Player One and the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them sequel, all of which already have release dates. So he's in the room for those movies. So if 2018 is indeed the release date for the Batman film, right now it seems like they would have to start filming sometime next year. So there's no release date set just yet. I mean, they did just move James Wan's Aquaman to October 5th, 2018. So we can potentially be seeing maybe 2 movies then. We don't know just yet. So I mean, obviously this is still a fresh news item. I'm pretty sure they're going to release some other statement or something like that later on, but right now it should be interesting to see what happens with this. If this is indeed the case, that the Batman film will be released in 2018. If it is, that'd be really cool. Just saying, just putting it out there. All right, so let's move on to the next news item, which is Pacific Rim 2 and Godzilla 2 have new titles. For a long time, the sequel to Pacific Rim was called Pacific Rim Maelstrom. However, Legendary Pictures announced that the film will have a new title in Pacific Rim Uprising. That film is currently set to be released on February 23rd, 2018. And when it comes to Godzilla 2, we haven't had a lot of news on that front just yet, although we do have a new director in Michael Dougherty, who directed Krampus and directed Trick or Treat, which I highly recommend you watch if you haven't watched it. It's a Halloween movie, but it's still very good. I highly recommend it. Anyway, the new title for Godzilla 2 is Godzilla King of Monsters, which is pretty cool. King of Monsters opens on March 22nd of 2019. We don't have any real big news item on Godzilla just yet, story-wise, except some early some early news reports that said that we will be seeing some other classic Godzilla villains in the film. So we'll keep an eye on that. Now that we have a release date, we'll keep an eye on that and a new title to potentially hear more stuff about that. That'd be kind of cool. Moving on, a remake for the South Korean zombie film Train to Busan is in the works. The Hollywood Reporter, this apparently has been floating around for like a week, and this is the first time I've heard about it. So the Hollywood Reporter reports that a remake of the highly successful South Korean zombie film Train to Busan is in the works. The film follows a group of passengers on board a bullet train from Seoul to the southern port of Busan, with a main focus on a father and daughter who find out that a deadly zombie virus has broken out throughout the country and has made its way onto the train. I had the chance to watch the film on the big screen during the summer, and I was very, very, very impressed by it. The film worked on a lot of levels, and while I'm surprised, I'm not surprised, I should say, that the film is getting remade, although I am a bit disappointed. I am surprised at the turnaround for a Hollywood remake, that it happened so fast. But then again, the Raid remake rights were bought within a year of the film being released, and they still haven't made that movie. So there is that. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch the original, I highly recommend you do. Train to Busan, I'm pretty sure it's playing somewhere on a streaming service. I could be wrong, but it's a very good film. It's a very impressive thriller. It's a zombie film, but it's not like the zombie. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but the zombie effects are interesting and pretty cool. So I will say that. But yeah, it's a very effective thriller. It's a very effective movie. It's more emotional than you think. So I highly recommend, if you haven't watched it yet, Train to Busan. Watch it before the remake happens, I guess. Alright, so let's move on to the next news item. Ruben Fleischer is set to direct Chris Evans in Jekyll. Ruben Fleischer, who directed Zombieland, has joined the film Jekyll with Chris Evans, who is set to play the famous literary character. The film is based on the 2007 BBC One series of the same name. In the original series, James Nisbet played Tom Jackman, a modern-day descendant of Jekyll who is beginning to feel the split personality take over. He eventually abandons his family without explaining to them why, and lives in a fortified basement with an ally. Neither of them can remember what the other one does, Jekyll and Hyde, I should say, but eventually Hyde finds out that Jekyll has a family, and the relationship grows harder from there. I watched a few episodes of the series. I remember watching a few episodes, and I thought it was pretty good. I didn't finish watching the series. I don't know why I didn't finish watching it, but I did watch a few episodes, and I thought it was a very very good show. I probably have to go back and watch it now, but I do remember when I watched it, it was very good. So this project is of course set up over at Lionsgate, and has nothing to do with Universal's Shared Monsters film, because Russell Crowe is set to play the character in the Mummy film coming out next year. So we'll have some competition, which is very, 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 it's the landscape now in Hollywood, to have two of the same movies or two of the same characters in different films. But yeah, so there's no release date or production date just yet. It looks like they're accommodating Chris Evans for his Captain America duties, so we'll have to wait and see. And Fleischer will also work on the script for the film, so we'll have to wait and see how that movie plays out. Disney's live-action Cruella eyes a director. Disney's, of course, doing a live-action film based on Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians, and now they have a director in negotiations. The director in negotiations is the co-creator of the Amazon series Mozart in the Jungle, Alex Timbers. Now, Alex Timbers is mostly known for being a stage director before, of course, he did Mozart in the Jungle. And he's directed plays like Rocky, Peter and the Starcatcher, and Bloody Andrew Jackson. And according to Variety, he wasn't the only stage director in talks to potentially direct the film. Disney was looking at Sam Gold, who directed the Tony Award-winning play in 2015 for Fun Home. So it looks like Disney was looking for a specific style for the Cruella film. That doesn't necessarily mean that Cruella will be a musical, but considering that musicals are kind of the craze right now, maybe it will be. Who knows? We'll find out. Emma Stone is attached to play Cruella de Vil, which is a very interesting casting, and I think kind of almost weirdly perfect in some way. Of course, Glenn Close played Cruella de Vil in the live-action 101 Dalmatians film, but that's another story. The film doesn't have a production or release date just yet, but now with the director and Emma Stone still attached, of course, coming off the early success of La La Land, Cruella could be something we'll be hearing a lot more about in the future. Lucas Black is returning for the Fast and the Furious 8 film. I still kind of refuse to call the film The Fate of the Furious, because it's a dumb title, but whatever. So the first trailer dropped for Fast and the Furious, and we'll talk about that later in trailer talk. But The Fate of the Furious, it's a stupid title, released its first trailer this weekend, and now we have some big news that the lead in Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, Lucas Black, will return to play his character Sean Boswell in the film. Now, he appeared briefly in Furious 7, but now reports note that Sean will have a bigger role in the Fate and the Furious and potentially any future film after that. Now, Sean's return will be interesting to see unfold, considering the film has been focusing on the core group that we've been following essentially since Fast 5. So, could Sean be potentially bought in to take down Dom, who of course seemingly betrays his team in the film? And again, we'll talk about that more in trailer talk. Either way, Lucas Black returning for a potentially bigger role should be great, says the guy who of course enjoyed the ridiculousness that was Tokyo Drift. Ruby Rose is in talks for Pitch Perfect 3. Pitch Perfect 3 kind of hit tiny little bumps in the road earlier this year when producer and director of Pitch Perfect 2, Elizabeth Banks, left the director's chair and then bounced around from release date to release date before finally landing a director in Trish C. She directed the last Step Up movie. She's also directed music videos for the band OK Go, and they finally got a new release date on December 22nd of next year. So now it looks like they're looking for a cast. We know that Anna Kendrick, Rebel Wilson, Brittany Snow, Anna Camp, Alexa Knapp, and Haley Steinfeld, and presumably Elizabeth Banks will return for her cameo appearance in the film with John Michael Higgins. We all know kind of they're coming back. So now they're looking at building their cast, and the first casting news is that Ruby Rose is in talks to join the film. Now there's no word yet on who potentially she will play. She could play someone in this maybe new a cappella group or a rival group. Either way, she's building up her resume since she started working here in America. Of course, she was in the Netflix show Orange is the New Black. She will appear in a lot of films next year, like Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, Triple X: The Return of Xander Cage, and John Wick Chapter 2. And she's also currently filming the giant shark movie Meg. Yes, there's a giant shark movie being called Meg with Jason Statham. We all know we're gonna go watch it. So you can get your laugh out now. It's okay. So she's in talks to join the film for that. Sebastian Stan joins Margot Robbie's Tonya Harding biopic called I, Tonya. The Winter Soldier himself, Sebastian Stan, has joined the Tonya Harding biopic called I, Tonya, which already has Margot Robbie, like I mentioned, set to play the former figure skater star. She'll also produce the film. So Stan has joined the film as Jeff Gillooly. I think that's how you say his name. He's a real person. I probably should have looked that up. Harding's ex-husband, who helped Harding attack Nancy Kerrigan during before the 1994 Olympics. But he was Harding's ex-husband who helped Harding plot the attack to break Nancy Kerrigan's leg before the 1994 Winter Olympics. So for those unfamiliar, the story goes like this: Gillooly, again, we're just gonna go with that. And Tonya Harding's bodyguard hired someone else to break Nancy Kerrigan's leg, so she couldn't compete in the Olympics that year in 1994. And regardless of that, Harding and Kerrigan still both made it on the Olympic team that year, and Kerrigan went on to win a silver medal, while Harding finished 8th, and then she was eventually banned from the sport. And as for her now ex-husband, Gillooly became a public figure during the investigation and the trial that followed, where he testified against Harding, but was ultimately still sentenced to 2 years in prison for racketeering and essentially being the driving force to break Nancy Kerrigan's leg. It was a rather interesting story. I don't remember this. I was very, very young when this happened. So, but when you hear stuff that happened, when you hear stuff like that happened the year you were born, or like the years afterwards, where you don't remember too much stuff, and you go back and you listen to stuff like this, it seems outright ridiculous, and that's what this story is. There's video of I'm pretty sure some of us have seen the video of Kerrigan crying, holding her leg, and it seems outrightly ridiculous that this happens and stuff like this. But you always hear like these stories that figure skating is like everyone hates each other or whatever. It's really weird. But there's gonna be a movie about it, so we'll see what happens. The movie will be directed by Craig Gillespie, who directed Lars and the Real Girl. He directed $1 Million Arm. He directed the film The Finest Hours that came out earlier this year. He also directed the remake, and not really that bad, remake of Fright Night that came out, I believe, 3 years ago, something like that. But he's a great director, and they're going to start shooting early next year in the spring. I think that's what I read. So we'll obviously keep you guys updated on this project when it comes out as well. Lin-Manuel Miranda finds a new home for his animated film Vivo at Sony Pictures Animation, because the Lin-Manuel Miranda train ain't stopping anytime soon, as reports note that Lin-Manuel Miranda's animated film that he originally pitched to DreamWorks Animation has found a new home at Sony Pictures Animation, and they have fast-tracked the film and already gave it a release date of December 18th, 2020. The film is called Vivo and follows a Capuchin monkey with a thirst for adventure and passion for music that masks a treacherous passage from Havana to Miami to fulfill his destiny. Miranda even tweeted after the news came out saying, "I wrote these tunes for Vivo years ago. So thrilled they found the home at Sony Animation, and I get to play with Cruella again." Now, Cruella, for those of you guys that know, is I'm pronouncing this name wrong. I guarantee it. Cruella Audra Hughes, who worked with Miranda on Miranda's other hit Broadway show, not Hamilton, the other one, In the Heights. The film will be directed by Kirk DeMico, who directed The Croods, which is very good. If you haven't watched The Croods, I highly recommend you watch The Croods. But other than that, no other details have been announced. Either way, Miranda is pretty busy. He's a pretty busy man at the moment. He's working on a secret animated film over at Disney with Zootopia co-director Brian Howard. He's working on the live-action remake for The Little Mermaid. He's also working on the adaptation for The King Killer Chronicle. And he he's also going to work on the film for his Broadway show In the Heights that has a director in John M. Chu. So like I said, the Lin-Manuel Miranda train ain't stopping anytime soon. It feels like every other week we're talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is fine. He's a very talented man, and I finally saw Moana the other day. I'm pretty sure I think I mentioned this in the podcast last week. But I saw Moana and I loved it. It was fantastic. If you haven't watched Moana, highly recommend you do. Let's move on to the next news item. Ben Mendelsohn is in negotiations for Robin Hood Origins as the Chef of Nottingham. Ben Mendelsohn will appear in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is getting a lot of good reviews. And his character is set to be really, really good. Really good and cool. However, his villain days are not over, as he is in negotiations to play the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood Origins. Now, the film centers on, of course, Robin Hood, played by Taron Egerton from Kingsman and Eddie the Eagle, who in this version is a war-hardened crusader who joins a Moorish commander in an audacious revolt against the corrupt English monarchy. The film already has a cast of Jamie Foxx as Little John. Yes, Jamie Foxx as Little John. Eve Hewson from the Starz show The Nick as Maid Marian. And Jamie Dornan, of course, from 50 Shades of Grey as Will Scarlet, Robin Hood's half-brother. Now, Mendelsohn is a highlight at any film he's pretty much in, even in the small roles like Killing Them Softly and Place Beyond the Pines, to his bigger roles like in Animal Kingdom and Slow West, and even the Netflix show Bloodline. So he's great in everything he does. So getting him, pretty much elevates whatever scene or movie he's in a little bit. So he was also in The Dark Knight Rises. He played the rival businessman, the one that is trying to take over Wayne Enterprises. So he's great. He's done a lot of other stuff too. He was also in I hear he was good in Mississippi Grind, which is a film that got a limited release. It also had Ryan Reynolds. I heard that was good, but I never watched it, so I don't know. Robin Hood Origins currently has a release date of March 23rd, 2018. So we'll see. They're going to start filming next year. We'll see what happens when more cast members come on board for that. Hugh Jackman took a huge pay cut to ensure the rated R rating in Logan. So after Deadpool was a massive success with its R rating, many wondered if the film would lead to more R-rated comic book films. And many assumed that was the case when Fox greenlit the R rating for Hugh Jackman's last Wolverine appearance in Logan. Also, Jackman has stated multiple times over the years that he wanted his Wolverine to go out in an R-rated film. However, that's not the real reason why Logan has its R rating. The real reason is that Jackman took a pay cut. Probably a big one too. Because Hugh Jackman ain't cheap. According to James Mangold, the director, during an interview, he stated that Jackman took his salary cut because he wanted to do Logan with a fan-favorite R rating. And it should be noted, however, that Mangold actually shot the last Wolverine movie, as an R-rated film and a PG-13 film. And of course, Fox released the PG-13 film, but they released the R-rated film on DVD and Blu-ray. So if you want to go watch that, you can. Mangold also said in another interview about the freedom of doing an R-rated film. He said, This represents to me the kind of aggression, classical Wolverine action that we wanted in the movie, more of something that fans have also been asking for a really long time. We've been limited in one way or another from giving it to them, but I think we've got to go ahead and really go for it in this picture, so we're really trying to deliver what folks have always imagined those kind of battles would look like. There was a lot of high-octane action in the movie. We're just trying to do it very differently and very viscerally. And it sounds like that idea is going to happen because a lot of people, outlet people, of course, got to see 40 minutes of Logan last week. And the praise was apparently very high. All of them noted that the film took full advantage of the R rating. Some saying that it was the Logan that we've all been waiting for, and that fans are going to be very happy, and everything like that. So I'm very jealous of those people that got to see 40 minutes of Logan early, but we don't have to wait that long. March 3rd. Although now that I say it, it does seem kind of long. Yeah. I think this is a good way to go. I mean, I'm very excited for Logan. That trailer that they released was so awesome. If they just have that trailer, they don't release any more trailers or footage for the movie, I think we'll all be happy. But I'm sure they will. This looks great. I'm happy that Jackman, who is of course he kind of owes his career to Wolverine. He was pretty much a nobody when he first played Wolverine in the first X-Men film. He pretty much owes his career to Wolverine. So I'm glad that he is taking full advantage of this. So we'll get to see Logan in all its rated R glory on March 3rd. Patrick Wilson joins Aquaman as his half-brother in the film, aka Ocean Master. So a new release date for Aquaman was released last week. We mentioned that. It's coming out in 2018. We also mentioned it earlier. But now we have a new casting in Patrick Wilson. Now Wilson has joined the cast as Orem, I think that's how you say his name, aka Ocean Master, which is the half-brother of Aquaman, who in the comics has always kind of had the eye for the throne a little bit, and it's been a thorn on Aquaman's side. And that kind of people have been comparing their relationship to Marvel's Thor and Loki a little bit. That kind of seems to be a little bit the case. But either way, Wilson is an interesting and exciting choice. Wilson is more than capable of handling big material like this. He's a great actor. He's one of those actors that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. But he also has a connection to the film because James Wan is directing the film, and he's directed Patrick Wilson in the Conjuring movies and in the first two Insidious films. So there's a connection there. He also already has somewhat starred in the DC Extended Universe. He voiced the President in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. But of course he wasn't shown, so they can easily just be like, oh no, we have a new president. Or no one's going to remember that. But yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. And of course he also worked with Zack Snyder in Watchmen when he played Night Owl. So I like Wilson. I think Wilson's a great choice. He's an interesting choice to say the least, but he has delved into the comic book world before, and he's a great actor, so I'm sure it'll be pretty cool. Now, seeing him and Momoa, obviously they're both very drastically different, physique-wise and menacing-wise, but Patrick Wilson is a great choice, and he's a great actor. So Wilson is only the third actor to officially sign on. Of course, Jason Momoa is playing Aquaman, aka Arthur Curry. Amber Heard has joined the film as Mira, and William Dafoe will play Vulko in the film. There's also the possibility that Black Manta could appear in the film, although there's conflicting reports, at least from what I've read, that he will appear and maybe he will not appear. Most of them are leaning that he will appear in the film, so we'll obviously see that. Aquaman will open again on October 5th, 2018. Alright, so these next few news items are they're really all connected in their own, weird way. So the Hollywood Reporter released a big news item that we'll talk about next, but this one was dug in that story as well, that Warner Brothers and DC Films are still set on making a Suicide Squad 2. And not only that, they want to develop a standalone / spin-off film for Will Smith's Deadshot. Now, when it comes to Deadshot, I guess it makes sense. Next to Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, Deadshot was the other highlight of the film. But and again, you don't, kind of like Ben Affleck, you don't get Will Smith to play not only a popular Batman villain, but only have him appear in team-up films. And for me, again, I was very, I wasn't impressed with Will Smith's casting at first, and then I saw Suicide Squad, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, I mean, I was very suppressed and surpassed by what I thought he could bring to the table as Deadshot, and he was great. Does he deserve a standalone spin-off film? I don't know. I honestly don't know about that. That seems very reactionary, and this is something that I will talk about once we get all these news items out. So there's that. As for Suicide Squad 2, the idea for the sequel was reported way before Suicide Squad even came out. But of course, that was before all the behind the scenes news came out, and then the reviews, and then the fans actually saw it. So the sequel was never out of the realm of possibility, especially considering the film was very highly successful and made more than $700 million at the box office. So that was always going to happen. Now, both of these projects have not been greenlit yet. They're just in active development, so we'll see what happens with that. Speaking of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn film gets a new title and a Suicide Squad reunion. So we've talked about the Harley Quinn spin-off film for a while. It was set up at Warner Brothers after Suicide Squad came out earlier this year, and everyone just fell in love with Robbie's Harley Quinn. Now the film has a title and a director. Now the film's early reports said that the film was going to be written by Christina Hodson and would center on the Birds of Prey storyline that would have Harley being somewhat of a hero. However, this new report suggests the studio is going in a different direction altogether. The Hollywood Reporter reported that the film will be called Gotham City Sirens and will be directed and co-produced by Suicide Squad director David Ayer. And the film would feature Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn teaming up with Poison Ivy and Catwoman. Also, Gotham City Sirens will have a new script written by Genevieve Robertson Durrett, who is writing the Tomb Raider film. Now, the report says that the film could adapt the recent DC Comics run from 2009, centered on Harley, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman working together to go up against multiple reformed criminals, villains disguised as heroes, and notable names from Batman lore. Now, this news isn't confirmed just yet, but it seems to be how the studio is going forward, according to the Hollywood Reporter. Not only that, a report from Bleeding Cool. This is a rumor. This is not news. It's a rumor. Try not to get angry. Calm down. Just settle down. It's a rumor that Megan Fox is considered for the role of Poison Ivy. Now, Fox who is a long-time self-proclaimed comic book fan and has even expressed interest in playing Poison Ivy at one point, has been buying issues of Harley Quinn's pre-New 52 comic book series, specifically the ones that feature Poison Ivy. And moreover, that she was even sent comic books from a Warner Brothers Studios address. So either she is being very heavily considered, or the studio is sending her comics so she can get ready for an audition for the role. And again, this is just a rumor. Fox has not confirmed the news, neither has Megan Fox, and neither has her people. So there's that. Also, Gotham City Sirens is essentially still kind of new. It was just announced, and even though it's being fast-tracked, we probably won't hear any real news about it for a while. Maybe. I don't know. So let's talk about all of this as a whole. One, I don't think Megan Fox is a good choice for Poison Ivy. That's just me. She hasn't really impressed me too much as an actress. She hasn't really done anything stand out for me personally. I hear she was good in This Is 40, but I haven't watched it yet. The Judd Apatow movie, but I haven't watched it, and I hear she's good in that. But that's neither here nor there. Because I haven't watched it, I should say. I've seen Jennifer's Body, which was atrocious. It was not a good movie. It wasn't good. Transformers, she was just eye candy for most of it. She's not a good April O'Neil in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I don't know. I mean, maybe she just hasn't been given the right material, or maybe she's just not a good actress. I don't know. I'm sure she's a great person in real life, but as an actress, I just haven't been impressed too much by her work. And I don't know if she's the best choice for Poison Ivy. Of course, the last time we saw Poison Ivy on the big screen was Uma Thurman in Batman and Robin, and we all know how that movie turned out. No, it sucked. Don't try to be like, no, it was good. No, it wasn't. Don't try to defend that movie. Don't do it. So there's that. Okay, and again, this is just a rumor, so we shouldn't get too, uptight about it and everything. So there's that. Let's move on to the Deadshot stuff. I liked Will Smith as Deadshot. I don't know if Deadshot, a single standalone spin-off movie with Deadshot, is a good idea. Because he works better. I think he works better as a villain or as a team-up film. So if you're gonna have Deadshot, you better team him up with someone, or just leave him in Suicide Squad films, or have him appear in the Batman film. I don't know if he. I don't know. I'm not crazy about the idea. Suicide Squad 2, again, depending on, it doesn't matter if fans liked it or not, it made a lot of money for the studio. The studio's going to make a sequel. There's no doubt about that. When it comes to Gotham City Sirens, not too crazy about the title, but, you got Harley, you got Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, who was a highlight for many people in Suicide Squad, and it just seemed very reactionary that Warner Brothers is like, oh, well, people liked Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. People liked Will Smith's Deadshot. Let's give them their own movies. That's not how you run a business. It's not. And John Campea, who does Collider Movie Talk, he did this. And this kind of, and I agreed with him. He talked about this recently on Collider Movie Talk, which is a show that they do on YouTube. And I agreed with him when he said this. All this seems very reactionary. And it's true. Because it seems like, Margot Robbie, a great actress. She absolutely killed it as Harley Quinn. But does she deserve her own movie? Maybe, sure. But you're going to put her up with Poison Ivy and Catwoman? Yes, the three of them have always had this, relationship. But that's not the movie people want. People want a Harley Quinn Joker movie. And despite the fact that I didn't like Jared Leto's Joker, maybe he works better with Harley Quinn. I don't know. This idea, it seems very just reactionary, and it's like, let's just give everyone their own movies. That's not how you run the business, and this is why, in some ways, and I'm not trying to make this a Marvel versus DC thing. Marvel is a more successful film franchise because Marvel plans out their movies. They don't say like, oh, Ant-Man sucked, let's rework whatever we're gonna do and move past it. No, Marvel has their plan. They set out their plan way before everything. This is a reason why they have release dates for films in the future, and there's a reason why they are so meticulous and successful at the box office, because they just work on those films very heavily and then they move on to the next one, says someone who is not a fly on the wall in their office. DC, when it comes to DC and Warner Brothers, again, this is very reactionary. It is. Oh, Margot Robbie was very popular in Suicide Squad. Let's give her own movie, which is great. Okay, if you want to do that, great. But Poison Ivy and Catwoman, who have not even been introduced in the DC Extended Universe at all, or even mentioned, or anything, and you're going to put her up with them. I mean, again, it could work. It could. I'm not going to say it's not going to work. It could work, as long as it's good. Let's put it that way. But you're not going to be like, oh, we're going to make a Harley Quinn and Joker film. Like Joker, one of the most popular, arguably the best Batman villain that you have, and you're not going to pair him up with Harley Quinn? Like, that doesn't make any sense, especially considering the ending of Suicide Squad. It seems dumb. It does. It seems dumb. And I hate saying that, because Warner Brothers is a great studio. You look at their lineup of films, and they just nothing but great films. And maybe it just seems like they're like Warner Brothers isn't this. I mean, we've talked about the DC Extended Universe here on the podcast multiple times. They are not. Look, and I liked Man of Steel. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than probably the more people did. Was it a great Superman movie? No, it wasn't. Was it a absolute garbage film? No, it wasn't. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice disappointed on a lot of levels. Suicide Squad, not a great movie, not a perfect film. Was it fun? Sure, it was fun. It was more fun than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, but it's still disappointed on a lot of levels. Wonder Woman, coming out next year, looks fantastic, and I hope Wonder Woman is good. I do. Gal Gadot was one of the highlights of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and she was great, and her films so far, based on the trailers, look great. Justice League, not completely sold on Justice League at all. The Comic-Con trailers did not really, it didn't buy me into it. I'm not crazy about Ezra Miller playing the Flash. Cyborg seems like a character that I don't know too much about him, so I'm not really sold on him. And Jason Momoa as Aquaman, I guess, maybe he could work. Who knows? There is something to be said that Warner Brothers and DC have not been on the same track as Marvel. And again, I'm not trying to make this a Marvel versus DC thing. Marvel knows what they're doing. It is a well-oiled machine. Warner Brothers and DC is not that, because they have lost on The Flash 2 directors that have signed on over creative differences. Seth Grahame-Smith, who was officially signed. Phil Lord and Chris Miller were attached to The Flash, but they weren't actually attached as directors from what I read. If they were, then that's 3, because they left and they went to go do the young Han Solo film. Seth Grahame-Smith was attached as a director, and he left over creative differences. And they brought in Rick Famuyiwa over the summer, and he was attached to the project for like 4 or 5 months before he dropped over creative differences. How do you lose a director 4 or 5 months into essentially pre-production over creative differences after 4 or 5 months? Did you not talk to him and hear his pitch? How do you do that? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You lose a director over creative is fine. It's not like he was like, oh, go rewrite the script. Okay, fine. Here's the script. This is completely okay, this is fine. And then all of a sudden you realize like, oh, that's not going to work. And then you talk to him, he's like, well, that's the movie I gave you. You don't want it, then I'll go. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not trying to bash on Warner Brothers and DC. I want the DC Extended Universe to succeed. I wanted a good Batman v Superman Dawn Justice movie. I was excited for Suicide Squad before I read all the trailers that said the movie, or the reviews that said it was bad. I'm excited for Wonder Woman. I hope it's good. I hope Justice League has to be good. No, it has. You know what? It has to be great. It can't be okay. It can't be decent, and it can't be good. It has to be great. Because if Justice League fails, if fans are not excited for Justice League, then I don't see fans really sticking with the DC Extended Universe. I don't. I know I won't. If I'm not impressed or Justice League is not great, it could be good, fine, it could be good, but it has to be great to get fans really back on board with the DC Extended Universe. And if Wonder Woman is fantastic, if it's great, and it's awesome, that the trailers make it believe, then Justice League is going to have a lot of weight on its shoulders. And I think you can't excite the fans with a great film like Wonder Woman and then have a team-up film and then have that all your stock pretty much go down the drain. It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the fans of the characters. I just hope that they fix whatever it is they need to fix. As for this, could Gotham City Sirens be good? Yes, it could be good. It could. David Ayer, despite how you feel about David Ayer, even him saying that, yes, Suicide Squad was my movie and the studio did not interfere, as he was probably reading it from a cue card, maybe he can do good things with Gotham City Sirens. Who knows? We'll find out. That was the last news item of the day, by the way, guys. Didn't mean to get too heavy on you guys, but sometimes you gotta get a little heavy sometimes with these news items, because you're passionate and you like the series and stuff like that, and you just need to say how it is sometimes. Not like Donald Trump, say how it is. You gotta say how it is, film-wise. All right, so let's move on to trailer talk this week. Again, it's I'm filming this podcast pretty early because I got some stuff to do on Friday. So obviously, whatever news items come out, whatever trailers come out after this podcast goes up, they will be up on the Facebook page, hopefully, if I have time to put it up there. So just keep an eye out on that. So let's move on to trailer talk. The first trailer that came out this week, there's a new trailer for DreamWorks Animation's The Boss Baby. I didn't watch it, I just saw that it just came out, so the trailer's up there if you want to go watch that. There's a first trailer for Despicable Me 3. It pretty much is like the other Despicable Me trailers. It kind of plays out as this extended scene. We see the new villain of the film that's actually voiced by Trey Parker, of course, the South Park creator, and voices a lot of the characters. I like this. The Despicable movies are pretty good. They're not that bad. The Minions show up. The Minions are there. They're at the end of the trailer, so you can look forward to that. I mentioned the first trailer for The Fate of the Furious. Oh my god, it kills me every time I have to say that title. It came out, and it looks really good. It looks ridiculously awesome. They just completely they always up the ante on the film. And I mentioned earlier that the trailer kind of makes it looks like Dom is being blackmailed somehow by Charlize Theron's villain called Cypher, and he's betrayed his group, his family, and he's kind of been working with her, and now it looks like the group is going to have to take him down. Jason Statham is now teaming up with The Rock's character Hobbs. It looks interesting. It looks pretty. There's a submarine involved. We all know we're gonna watch this movie. We all know it. We all know it. So that's up there, or down there, I should say, in the description area, / show notes area. You should go click on that. Also, the new trailer for Christopher Nolan's World War II film Dunkirk has been released. The trailer is phenomenal. It's great. There's a lot of great shots in the film. It looks really epic. It's based on a true story that happened, and I cannot wait to watch this. You'll see a lot of familiar faces in there: Mark Rylance, Cillian Murphy, Kenneth Branagh, Tom Hardy. It looks really good. It looks vastly different from anything we've seen from Christopher Nolan. So I'm really excited for it. It looks really great. There's a lot of great shots in there, and it comes out next year. So all the trailer links will be down below in the description area / show notes area, so you can go check that out. Alright, so let's move on to this week's releases. First, let's talk about some expansion releases. Jackie continues to be expanded out there for you guys. Natalie Portman plays, of course, Jacqueline Kennedy after her husband gets assassinated. Manchester by the Sea, the movie with Casey Affleck, Michelle Williams, that is getting an expansion release as well. Also getting an expanded release this week is La La Land, the Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling film that's getting a lot of buzz, as is Manchester by the Sea, and as is Jackie. Very Oscar bait movies. If you want to get ahead of the game, go check those out. So there's that. Another limited release this week, very limited release. The movie comes out later this year, but it's getting a limited release now, is Fences, based on the play by August Wilson and directed, who also wrote the film, and is directed by Denzel Washington. Yes, Denzel. An African-American father, played by Washington, struggles with race relations in the United States while trying to raise his family in the 1950s and coming to terms with the events of his life. The film also stars Viola Davis, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It looks like a powerhouse film. I'm pretty sure this movie is going to get nominated for a crap ton of awards. I'm pretty sure Denzel and Viola will get nominated as well. So that's getting a very limited release this week. But again, it's coming out later this year. 2 weeks? No, it's actually coming out on Christmas. It's coming out on Christmas Day, December 25th. So again, we'll talk about that again later on. But it's getting a limited release this week if you want to go check that out. So the wide releases this week, we only have 2 of them. One of them is Collateral Beauty. Retreating from life after a tragedy, a man, Will Smith, questions the universe by writing to love, played by Keira Knightley, time, played by Jacob Latimore, and death, played by Helen Mirren. Receiving unexpected answers, he begins to see how things interlock and how even loss can reveal moments of meaning and beauty. The film also stars Edward Norton, Michael Pena, Naomi Harris, and Dowd and Kate Winslet. I'm not sold on this movie, and some of the reviews have been not great. So I kind of already know the twist. You can kind of see it in the movie. So in the trailers, I should say, I'm not sold. I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna be watching this. But and it's got a great cast. So that's kind of surprising. But that's how it crumbles sometimes. But alright, so the next wide release is, of course, the big one, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Directed by Gareth Edwards, the rebellion makes a risky move to steal the plans to the Death Star, setting up the epic saga to follow. The film stars Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, Donnie Yen, Ben Mendelsohn, Wen Jiang, Forrest Whitaker, Riz Ahmed, Alistair Pietri, Genevieve O'Reilly, Jimmy Smits, Alan Tudyk, and Mads Mikkelsen. I'm pretty sure I said Mads' last name wrong. But anyway, it looks fantastic. It looks absolutely awesome. I'm watching it. I'm recording this on Thursday, by the way, so I'm watching it tonight in IMAX, and I cannot wait. I have heard there's nothing but good has been released for this movie. Everyone is saying it is awesome. Everyone is saying it pays tremendous homage to the Star Wars lore and history. It is a great film. It's almost as great. Some people are even comparing it as good as Empire Strikes Back, which is, of course, if you talk to any Star Wars fan who is, entrenched in the Star Wars history, all of them will say that Empire is the greatest Star Wars film ever made. And saying that Rogue One is as good as Empire, or putting it up there, is a great film. Is a great film. Is a great word of mouth, pretty much. So I cannot wait for this film. Again, it's been getting nothing but great reviews from people. The early reviews, anyway, I should say. But I can't wait for it. I'm really excited for this film. Obviously, I'm going to keep my expectations. I always keep my expectations down. I leave my expectations and hype at the door, and I'm like a sponge. I just suck up whatever the movie gives me. But I'm really excited for us. I really am. I've been getting extremely excited for the film ever since then. Ever since I saw the last trailer. So, Rogue One, Star Wars Story, Collateral Beauty. Those are your wide releases this week. Expansion releases this week: Jackie, Manchester by the Sea, and La La Land. And your limited release this week is Fences. So let's move on to this week's box office predictions. Last week, I predicted that Moana would be number 1. Office Christmas Party will be number 2. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them will be number 3. Arrival will be number 4. And Allied will be number 5. Last week's actual box office was Moana at number 1. Office Christmas Party number 2, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them at number 3, Arrival at number 4, and Doctor Strange at number 5. So I got the last one wrong. But that's okay. This week's picks, I think we all know how this is going to turn out, right? I mean, we're Star Wars, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story is going to be number 1 at the box office. It's going to make a crap ton of money. It's probably going to be number 1 until the end of the year, going into January. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. So Rogue One, A Star Wars Story is my number 1 pick for this week. Moana will probably be number 2. I think there's still going to be enough kids that want to go see Moana, and I think obviously their parents are going to take their kids to go see Rogue One, but those who can't get into Rogue One will probably go watch Moana. So Moana's going to be number 2. I think Collateral Beauty will come in at number 3. Again, the reviews haven't been so good, and I think even with the cast, and Rogue One's going to take a lot of people away from that theater as well. So Collateral Beauty number 3, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them will stay in the top 5 at number 4, and Arrival will be number 5. If you haven't seen Arrival, I highly recommend you do. It's one of those great films, and I'm glad to see that it's still rocking in the top 5. So go watch Arrival if you haven't already. Again, go watch Moana if you haven't already as well. So once again, my picks: at number 1, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Number 2, Moana. Number 3, Collateral Beauty. Number 4, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And number 5, Arrival. That's the podcast this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this is all the podcast news that has come out at the time of this recording. Again, I'm recording this early because I have stuff to do on Friday, and I'm watching Rogue One tonight on Thursday, but I have some other stuff going on this weekend, so I won't be able to record anything new. So after this podcast is put out, keep in touch with the news on my Facebook account, facebook.com/moviepit. Link will be down below in the description /show notes area, so you guys can go click on that and keep up to date on all the movie news. Get an early preview of what we're going to talk about on the podcast without all my opinions. I guess some of my opinions on the page, but I do mostly talk about all of my opinions here on the podcast. You can also go like my WordPress account. I would definitely be reviewing Rogue One, Star Wars Story, so you can go check that out at movieswithchris.wordpress.com. That's movieswithchris.wordpress.com. Again, link will be down below in the description /show notes area as well. Also down below, again, if you want to hear a news item all over again, there's timestamps down there. And also, while you're down there, go check out the trailers for The Fate of the Furious, Dunkirk, Despicable Me 3, and The Boss Baby, if you want to go watch that. I highly recommend you watch the Dunkirk trailer, and of course the Fate of the Furious trailer as well. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're watching me, that's kind of weird. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I'll have a special podcast up next week. Next week will be my final podcast of the year. get more. We'll talk about all the movie news that are coming out for the rest of the year, and I will talk about the future of the podcast. Kind of keep you guys in suspense. It's nothing really big, nothing major, just little small stuff. But yeah, we'll talk about that. So that will come out next week. We'll talk about some other news items that dropped, of course, and yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening to this week's podcast. You guys have been great for listening. If you stuck all the way through, I am not watching you because I can't see you, so there's that. But thank you guys so much for listening to this week's podcast. Let me know what your favorite news item of the podcast Let me know what your favorite news item was down below in the comments section. Also, let me know what your box office picks are. If you're excited for Rogue One, and if you've already seen it, let me know what you thought of it down below as well. No spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the film. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. You guys have been great. I will see you guys next week. Stay safe. Stay warm. It is cold as hell here in Chicago right now. But yeah, stay warm, stay safe, stay positive, and as always, go watch some movies. And in honor of Star Wars, let the Force be with you.